Hey, this is Steve Good.
And Yuri Cataldo.
And we're back again on the Coin Chat, cutting through the noise and misinformation on cryptocurrency to tell you what truly matters.
Hi.
Welcome back, Yuri. It's nice to see you again.
It's good to see you again, Steve.
So
I like how you said that last line.
Yeah, thank you. I don't feel like I got enough out of this whole kind of consensus thing that I started thinking about. You know, it is so confusing when I look at the mining stuff. I thought maybe it might just be worth just sharing with people, exposing them a little bit to more details on, you know, all the different protocols in mining, because it's so deep and so technical. It's a rabbit hole on a rabbit hole on a rabbit hole all on its own. Just a maze of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought maybe the easiest way is to sort of describe it from what you and I were talking about offline, which is this concept of the Byzantine sort of... Byzantine, sorry.
That's okay. I say our history. Byzantine generals problem. That's what
Byzantine generals problem. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And this was an idea that was brought up in the early 90s, actually.
Right.
About consensus. So it's been around for a while.
Right. So I put up an image on the screen for those who are on YouTube, but for those who are just listening in, what we basically got is a castle in the middle, and in a nice kind of I'm going to attack the castle model. All the little red arrows surrounding the whole castle would all be in agreement. We're going to attack the castle. And that's great because everyone's going to attack.
Right. But it only works if they all attack at the same time.
And together.
In
consensus.
Yes. In consensus. And they're all far apart. So they can't just like wave a flag in one part and all the generals see it. So
right.
That's where the basic problem starts from. And then in between all of them are these traders who will sometimes change whatever the information is. So who do you know, how do you trust that the information you're getting is correct? And how then do you work together as in a unit to decide when to all attack at the same time?
Right. So therein lies the problem. If you've got a castle and you've got a bunch of generals surrounding the castle, you need to have a mechanism for communicating between all the generals. And there's where your consensus comes in. You still need at least 50% of the guys to say, we're going ahead. And if a few traders decide to bugger off, or they don't want to fight, or they're scared of losing their lives, or they want to go back to their wives, or whatever it was that was going on back then, or even today, then you still need to know that there's enough consensus across all the other generals to go ahead and attack, and that there's still agreement. So that's how'd you call it? The Byzantine generals.
The Byzantine generals problem.
Good. Thank
you. Yeah.
Cool.
You're welcome.
Right. So that, right. There's so many different protocols in mining and in consensus that I thought this was a good good way to start it, to kind of explain the problem set, which is we need to have in the mining community for it to work, you need to have 51% or above, because if you don't, then effectively someone can infiltrate the mining operation globally as a decentralized organization and can destroy that. So there are a ridiculous number of protocols. We've talked about a few in the past. The simplest one's proof of work, which is basically the Bitcoin model of using ASICs and using GPUs, or not GPUs, but in Ether you use GPUs, or ASICs in Bitcoin, to effectively run a bunch of calculations, computations, and come back and say, this is the result, and everyone says yes or no, and if there's outliers that say no, they're just ignored because it's going to go ahead. And those are the traders. And in the proof of stake model, it's pretty much the same thing. The difference being now you're just staking coins, but your computer still does the calculation. And as long as there's 51% that agree, the traders are thrown out, and the consensus says from the computers, yes, this calculation is correct. Yes, this transaction is fine, and go ahead and proceed with the transaction. So you're go ahead.
That's the Ethereum model.
Right. Yeah, right. So now let's talk about, so proof of stake is not necessarily the Ethereum model. There's a lot of coins that use proof of stake, but proof of work is Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I know that Ethereum, of course, is moving to a proof of work, proof of stake model. It's doing a bit of both. But there are other coins, like the one we talked about, the adult coin, which was definitely a proof of stake.
Yes, it would be.
And there's a number of other Gin coin, and there's lots of other projects out there that are using proof of stake models where you have to hold the coins in order to participate in the mining. But actually,
Right.
Yuri, you and I were talking offline. There's a whole bunch of other types of consensus-based mining models. Should we just rattle off a few to give people a flavor of the complete and utter madness that's out there in the world of
Sure.
crypto?
Sure. So, okay. So first off, there's the delegated Byzantine fault tolerance that's used by Neo.
Only you could say that. I would never have managed to say that on the first go.
And it's a little bit of a mouthful to explain. So should we you want to just name them, or do you want to actually try to
Let's
explain
just
them?
name a few of them first.
Okay.
And then circle back. So that's one. There was I saw that there was proof of elapsed time,
Mm-hmm. There's a proof of activity,
proof of storage,
proof of burn,
proof of burn.
proof of burn. I just
Wow.
saw that one recently.
What else?
Proof of capacity.
Okay, interesting.
There's also proof of coin, which I think those are kind of mixed together.
Okay.
And then there's it's for like if you're trying to do a public and private blockchain solution, there's, I think it's called tendermint.
Right. Yeah, I read about that. Couldn't get my head around it. I have no idea what it said. I mean, no, I kind of get it, but to be honest, some of this stuff is super mega technical because there's multiple ways to implement this stuff, and people are probably sitting here wondering right now, what do we mean? Can we give some examples of the differences? I mean, we've already described the difference between proof of work and stake. Because stake, you have to have coins, and work, you just provide mining power or compute power. But proof of storage, you have to have storage capacity. And the storage capacity counts. And the more capacity you have, then the more that you're mining. Kind of weird,
Right.
but yeah.
And then it's another one, loop fault tolerance. I'm just going to keep naming these off, these random ones, which get really a lot more technical in that one. But
Cool.
there's a current coin. It's ICON. They're the primary ones who use the loop fault tolerance.
Icon, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ICON. Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
No.
No.
That's really, really technical, and I'm not as technical of a person, so it's going to be harder to describe it.
But I think the point we're making here is that there has been an evolution in the various types of mining solutions that are out there to account for or solve various problems, and to make sure that there's efficiency in the way that coins are mined, or that coins are validated, or that transactions are verified. And these are all different forms of consensus across a network of a decentralized environment.
Yeah, which again, I think is fascinating that they're basically all using this one issue that was brought up back in the early 90s, and then most of these solutions are coming from that idea of like, how do you get a group of generals who may or may not be lying to one another to arrive on consensus? So I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. So there's when you look at things like I was thinking of an example. There was like delegated proof of stake. Did you mention that?
No, I don't think I did.
So delegated proof of stake is just another form of proof of stake, where the delegates can also propose other types of changes to the network, and their proposals are distributed to be voted on by all the stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
So that's almost like bringing users in to kind of vote on something, but not. Did we talk about proof of authority?
We did not.
Well, so that's everyone has one and only one reputation. So everyone gets one vote regardless of what they're doing. So it creates a level playing field for all people.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the what EOS does, the transaction as proof of stake.
Right.
So everybody gets one.
Right. So then we mentioned proof of elapsed time, which was actually somehow was related to Intel, and I believe Hyperledger is using some parts of this on their Sawtooth blockchain project. So it's called POET, proof of elapsed time. And it's a lottery designed consensus protocol that builds on trusted execution environments provided by the Intel SGX CPU chips. So talk about, make sure you have to have Intel in order to make the mining work.
Right, exactly.
So
cool.
It is cool. There's a lot of really cool, innovative ways to validate transactions other than I sent it and you received it.
Right.
Cool.
Right. And it's amazing to see where things are going, and I'm excited to see which ones start showing up more and more and more and allow for faster transactions and secure networks.
Right, absolutely. It's one thing I noticed in reading through all these things is no one really talks specifically about speed of transaction. It's all about the consensus and the agreement side of things. I agree with you, Yuri. I think the big thing missing that I'd like to see more of in the world of consensus is people focusing more on how to make it faster as part of consensus. It means you'll have to vote faster too.
Exactly.
Great. Well, I think that was a really good, quick little overview for people to just kind of get their heads around what is crypto mining in the sense of consensus and all the different protocols that are out there and how things are evolving. Thanks everyone for listening in. To the moon. Until next time.